Let's learn the king, bishop, knight versus king endgame. Some teachers and authors don't cover this. Jeremy Silman, for example, did not include it in his complete endgame course, arguing that it's rare and difficult, and that time is better spent on more common endings. He's not entirely wrong. The ending is difficult. Even strong players have failed to convert it. I'll leave links to a couple of games in the description. And beginners should first master the basic mates: king and queen, king and rook, king and two bishops. Not only are these easier, but they are more common, and from that fact alone, more important. But that doesn't make this ending of no value. It teaches coordination, how pieces restrict and guide the opposing king step by step. It demands care, discipline, and attention to detail. At first, it can look intimidating. A long procedure, the risk of the 50-move rule. But once you understand the structure, it becomes manageable. I once had this ending in a blitz game with 7 seconds left on the clock and was still able to convert it. Not because I improvised, but because the method is clear. That's what we're going to focus on here, the framework and the ideas. In the next video, I'll demonstrate the full technique. What is the core idea of this ending? With a light-squared bishop, checkmate can only be forced in a light-squared corner. With a dark-squared bishop, only a dark-squared corner. That's the first principle. The defender's strategy, therefore, is stay out of the checkmating corners. White's task is to force the enemy king into the wrong corner, that's the non-checkmating corner, and then drive him across the board into the right corner, or the checkmating corner, and then deliver mate. Everything in this ending serves that plan. It can be helpful to know what checkmate looks like with a bishop, knight, and a king. With a light-squared bishop and checkmating in the A8 corner, it looks like this. The bishop controls the corner square, A8. The knight covers the escape square, B8. The king covers the escape squares A7 and B7. This pattern is the checkmate. Notice that this pattern occurs when the king has been driven from the H8 to the A8 square. If the king has been driven from A1 to A8, the checkmate would look like this. It's the same pattern, but oriented differently. What are the moves immediately preceding this mate? From this position, white moves knight c5, king b8, knight a6, king a8, bishop c6, mate. In order for white to deliver checkmate in the correct corner, white must first force the king into the adjacent corner, the non-checkmating corner. Sometimes this is called the wrong corner. And while it is true that we cannot checkmate in this corner, nevertheless, forcing the king into this non-checkmating corner is a necessary step in the process. When the enemy king is corralled, trapped in the wrong corner, and with the goal of forcing the king to the A8 corner, white's pieces will be positioned as follows: knight on F7, king on F6, bishop on F5. Notice the bishop can be on any safe square on the B1 H7 diagonal. The enemy king is restricted. When the king moves to F8, the bishop will cover G8 by moving to bishop H7. This will force the enemy king forward. Notice the arrangement of these pieces carefully. This arrangement will occur 3 times as we force the king across the board. Here on the F file, then on the D file, and finally on the B file. Another key feature of this ending is the journey of the knight. The knight travels in a specific pattern. Starting from F7, the knight will make the following journey: knight E5, knight D7, knight C5, knight B7. This journey looks like a W, and so it's called the W maneuver. Understanding these basics, understanding that the king must be checkmated in a corner square that matches that of the bishop, understanding the checkmating pattern, understanding the piece arrangement and its 3 occurrences, and understanding the knight's W maneuver, all gives you the basics of mastering this endgame. Initially, the opposing king will be in the center. He must be driven from the center. In order to do this, white centralizes his pieces. The bishop and knight coordinate particularly well to cut off squares and form blockades. If I put the bishop on D5 and the knight on E4, look at the blockade that's formed. Or something like this. As you are learning this endgame, highlighting squares can be very helpful. The defender will resist, and we will have to exercise care. But eventually, we will force him into the non-checkmating corner. This phase is often the hardest part of this endgame. Once the king is in the wrong corner, the procedure begins. In the next video, we will perform the full checkmate against an engine and see these ideas in action.